Hello everyone and welcome to another random video on the internet. Today's topic was actually suggested by Calcfish on my Discord server and I loved it immediately, so big thank you to you. Toothless versus the Ender Dragon. Two immensely iconic dragons of a fairly similar size and build, both sharing similar dark color schemes, both being legends in their respective worlds, and both being the last representatives of their species, as well as both having shaped my childhood immensely. Seriously, these guys were huge parts of my life back in the day, and I share a great deal of nostalgia for both of them.
So now let's make them fight to the death.
We'll do two scenarios, one where Toothless and the Ender Dragon fight in some barren plains and duke it out in neutral skies, and two, we'll plop Toothless and Hiccup on the End Island and we'll see if the two of them could defeat the Ender Dragon when she's got the crystals. And if it wasn't obvious for the first scenario, we're gonna do Toothless with his tail intact so he can actually fly. And we'll also only be using the official Minecraft game for the Ender Dragon, no composite media like the novel or the Dungeons games or things of that sort. Just your regular vanilla Minecraft. Consider this a slight nerf to the Ender Dragon, cause the novels got him eating galaxies or something, so pretty sure Toothless isn't winning that one. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. The Ender Dragon. A dangerous yet tragic beast who's had her kind extinguished, leaving her as the only survivor to the modern day, carrying a single unfertilized egg that can never hatch. The Ender Dragon is doomed to watch as her species dies, and is destined to fall at the hands of the player over and over again, tortured for all eternity. Did she invade the overworld? Has she killed anyone? Does she pose any sort of threat? The answer is no. And yet, we barge into her home, destroy her towers, and savagely slay her without regret. And we call ourselves the heroes? Sorry, I had to get that off my chest. Getting into the Ender Dragon scaling, she would upscale from basically most other mobs in the game, for the most part, putting her above the likes of Gas, which can shoot explosive fireballs carrying building levels of destructiveness. She could also comfortably scale above creepers and even charge creepers, as she can take their explosions and live, putting her above large building levels for the regular creeper, and even entire city block levels going off of the charge creeper. However, it is worth noting that no single hit from Jean, that's the Ender Dragon's name if you didn't know, can deal as much damage as a fully charged creeper, and she does take pretty immense damage from these guys, so she wouldn't scale to this fully. Or would she? The Ender Dragon is also relative to the Wither for the most part, the Wither creating city block level explosions just by spawning, and being able to break blocks that even charged creepers cannot destroy, such as obsidian. And while Jean doesn't break obsidian, she is more than capable of taking many blows from the Wither and damaging it in return. The Ender Dragon herself also has calculations for the amount of blocks she can destroy with her charges, which can get her all the way up to small town level, as she casually flies by and destroys hundreds of cubic meters of things like iron or diamond or netherite, which even a charged creeper cannot destroy. And this is all without Jean taking any damage herself. However, there is more. There are higher end calcs for the Wither being town level via destroying netherite. And the Ender Dragon can literally destroy as many blocks of netherite as it wants, flying through them and deleting them into oblivion. But to be fair, we'll only do what she can immediately destroy, that being blocks within her own hitbox. Otherwise, she can fly forever and destroy millions of blocks, getting her to planet level or something, which obviously isn't how that works. So the Ender Dragon's hitbox is 16 by 14 by 8 blocks, totaling to 1,792 blocks or cubic meters. That is how much Jean can destroy in one go, in one instant. Using netherite blocks for this and going off of the destruction value for them from one of the calcs listed previously, and just slotting in a different value for how many blocks were destroyed in the instant, I got that Jean can perhaps be scaled all the way up to small city level. Keep in mind this is kind of a high end, but it's also kind of not, because some factors of this calc could also be pushed further, like using vaporization instead of pulverization, since there's really not any fragments left that blocks just turn to dust. And really quickly, to address the Steve lifting metas, where he can lift basically nigh infinite blocks of water or netherite or diamonds or gold and all these other things that he can lift universes, It's because it would make the video really boring, first of all, and secondly, gravity in Minecraft is super weird. Trees float, water flows, but the source block never falls down. Gravel and sand fall, the player is affected by gravity, but then items fall. However, when they hit the ground, they float. Are they affected by gravity? They're falling, but they're floating. It's weird and wacky, and that's sort of the appeal of Minecraft, but for power scaling, I think this meta is kind of questionable. Like, the blocks could just be, like, floating in Steve's inventory and not require him to actually lift them. Moving on to speed, unfortunately, the Ender Dragon is rather slow. Like, even comparing footage of the two dragons flying side by side, you can very clearly see that one is faster than the other, which I know simply comparing who looks faster in a clip is not a valid way of scaling, of course not. However, we do have a concrete measuring stick in terms of the Minecraft blocks, and we have the time frame, because, you know, we're observing it in real time. We are the player, we are reacting to it in real time. And at the very best, from what I've seen, the Ender Dragon should top out at around 43 meters per second from what I could find, which is actually around the same speed as the high end for bald eagles. Very impressive that a beast of this size can move this fast, but as you'll see, speed is not something she'll have over her competition. Lastly, for abilities, Jean has her breath attacks, those weird purple fireballs, and general ramming and headbutting and tail swiping, which is plenty effective as it can launch people super high into the air and deal massive amounts of damage. And that is the power of Jean, the last Ender Dragon. The last Ender Dragon sounds like a cool name, I'm copywriting it for a novel. She can usually be around those town level ranges with potential for being a small city buster, and flight speed surpassing most birds even. But will this be enough? Could she defend herself from a Night Fury? Toothless, the last Night Fury. The offspring of lightning and death, bringing terror to even the most battle-hardened of Vikings. With plasma blasts that blow the skin off of your bones, and oh my gosh, he is so darn cute. If I could have one pet from all of fiction, I might just have to say Toothless. Look at him. Look at this adorable goofball. But don't let those cute cuddly eyes fool you. Toothless is one of the most powerful and feared dragons in all of the archipelago and even outside of it. Generally speaking, he scales at least to some degree to almost every dragon we have seen in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, and for this we'll be using the movies as well as the Netflix TV show. Dragons in this world can generally scale around small building to city block levels, with various feats of physically tough dragons knocking over huge rocks being calced to those levels, and these guys generally should be physically tougher than Toothless. However, that is only half of the picture, as the dragons can regularly tank each other's fire without suffering any noticeable damage. This is important because dragon fire in this series is insane. Hookfang can completely burn a tree to sunder in seconds, which has been calculated to be a city block level feat, and then Stormfly can melt a giant boulder in a similar amount of time, which has been calculated to be around multi-city block level. Deadly Natters have been stated to have notoriously hot flames, but several dragons can legit just tank it with their wings numerous times throughout the show, so I think it's fair to scale them to it for this video. However, I'll also say that the general power of dragon fire in this show varies a ton. For example, Toothless sometimes fires plasma blasts at the ground and barely singes it, while other times he will shoot out these same blasts and blast open a whole canal for a river to flow through. So my best guess is that the dragons can control their fire pretty well in terms of power, meaning that it is certainly possible that Toothless wouldn't scale to that boulder melt showing on a physical level. However, his full power plasma blast certainly should. Some other notable feats in this series include the Red Death casually breaking down the wall of a small mountain, and Toothless damaging it and even knocking it down with a full power plasma blast pretty early on. Still, physically Toothless does not scale to this behemoth, only with his blasts. Then there's the Screaming Death, which can tunnel under islands and completely sink them into the ocean in a matter of literally minutes. Unfortunately, I don't have calcs for this, so someone please make some, because this is absolutely insane. But regardless, it's made explicitly clear that Toothless cannot damage this thing. It is extremely tough and they always need a strategy to most of the time not even beat it, but just lure it away. So all in all, Toothless should scale to building levels and durability, maybe city block at most, and his plasma blast can potentially dish out multi-city block levels of damage. Now for speed, oh lord the speed. Starting small, high-tier Vikings in Race to the Edge like Dagger can pretty casually catch crossbow bolts, which travel around 50 meters per second. This is already the speed of the Ender Dragon and a little bit above. Toothless can dodge and outspeed dozens of such arrows at the same time, usually only being caught when off guard or distracted. But this is quite literally nothing. Toothless has broken the sound barrier, or at the very least it seems that way. I mean, look at this. But if this is too vague for you, then maybe try him dodging lightning? Yeah, in several episodes, Toothless straight up can be seen frame by frame moving alongside and dodging lightning bolts. He doesn't quite scale to the full speed of lightning, but he can react to it, and he can move out of the way. And his Plasma Blast straight up travels relative to the blast of the Skrill Dragon, whose whole thing is collecting lightning and shooting it at people. And Toothless fights this thing multiple times and reacts to its lightning attacks on multiple occasions, including straight up clashing equally with its lightning in both speed and power with his own Plasma Blast. That is absolutely nuts for a show about Vikings. And this is all base Toothless. In his alpha form, he certainly gets noticeably stronger and faster, though not to an insane extent. And as for abilities, Toothless is extremely agile and very intelligent, certainly far more than the Ender Dragon, as he has shown numerous intelligence feats across the series. His fighting style involves a lot of clawing and biting, and his main weapon, of course, is the Plasma Blast, which he has 6 of at a time before needing to rest and recharge. He can also vanish for a while, so that's pretty nifty. And now, with the stats and abilities of both combatants covered, let us see who the superior dragon really is. Right off the bat, I think it is very clear that this would be a Fly vs T-Rex scenario for the most part. The Ender Dragon is quite vastly stronger and more durable, to the point that Toothless would struggle to damage her immensely. However, Toothless is vastly faster than Jean, to the point that she will never hit him. Even discounting the speed of lightning and speed of sand metas, Toothless is still far faster and is not getting caught. And while lowballing the Ender Dragon, Toothless could probably stagger her a bit, but the gap between them is still quite large and he most likely wouldn't be able to deal any lethal damage before his shots run out, at which point he would be quite powerless to inflict wounds, as his physical prowess is certainly not high enough for that. And for the high-balled Ender Dragon, yeah, forget about damaging her. With the Night Fury's intelligence, after 2 or 3 shots deal little to no damage, I could see Toothless trying to go for the Ender Dragon's eyes or mouth like he did with the Red Death, or its wings. But Minecraft is weird in the sense that while attacking the dragon's head does deal more damage to her, targeting her wings is generally the same as any other area of her body, and the head of the Ender Dragon is also just one big hitbox. Toothless won't be able to blind Jean or explode her throat or anything of the sort. He could attempt it, but it really just wouldn't work because of game mechanics. So now there are 2 routes that this fight could go. The first is a battle of attrition. Toothless has insane stamina. He can fly at high speeds for an entire day without rest and has rarely ever shown fatiguing. However, the Ender Dragon can quite literally fly around forever. That is what she does. All Jean has done for all of the game that the world of Minecraft has existed is fly endlessly around her island. The Ender Dragon quite literally never runs out of stamina, so in the end she would probably win after a very extended battle, as she just would not catch Toothless. He would fly around her. He could probably deal some damage, but the Ender Dragon just has so many hit points and so much durability that I really struggle to see Toothless actually doing that much damage to her to put her down. And now for the second and far more interesting option. After hours of combat, both dragons could just simply chill. Both of them are alone in the world. There is no one else like them. They're lonely, sad. And in that, maybe they could find that they're not so different after all. Maybe they could put their differences aside and finally find a bond in each other and put an end to their loneliness. Maybe they could be friends. And on that wholesome note, I hope you enjoy the video. If you're curious about the second scenario with Hiccup and the End Island, the duo would actually quite quickly figure out that the crystals have to be destroyed, and perhaps they could deal some damage to Jean by exploding them, as you can do in the game. But overall the matchup is mostly still kind of the same, with Hiccup and Toothless having higher chances due to the crystals, which is actually kind of funny in this case. The crystals would be the most reliable way to deal damage to her. And Hiccup and Toothless would certainly be more than fast enough to prevent her from healing. They would just destroy any crystals as she gets close to them, dealing quite a bit of damage. So it's kind of funny that in this case Jean's home turf advantage is actually kind of a disadvantage. But with that out of the way, I hope you enjoy the video. And with nothing else to say, I wish you a great rest of your day. Goodbye.